Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, you're hungry out there. Grab some Napoli pizza. It's delicious. All right. I'm going to do something real quick, though, to show you guys what's working. I'm going to click the camera on. I'm going to show up on the camera. Hi, there I am. I'm actually going to blow it up for a second if I can figure out how to do that. There it is. Okay. There I am. It'd be weird if I'm still using the same podcast 10 years from now, and then you guys will be like, whoa, you used to be kind of young, Mr. Lava, and now you're not. And that white's all over your head. But hey, feeling good, looking good. Got my comfy Monday sweater on. Anyway, if you're doing this correctly, here's what you should have in front of you right now. One, you should have a device like this. I'm using my Chromebook. You should have something like that. And just have the regular slideshow up, not the actual podcast. Then have your phone. There you should be on YouTube having this. And maybe you want to plug in your tunes or just however you want to do it. Maybe you're doing this with a friend. That's good. All right. Then you have that all ready to go. Then you're going to want the AP concept outline handy because I'm going to refer to it. My slideshows go exactly with this. So we're still with 2.1, and we bounce a little bit all over the place with this period, especially 2.1. So we're mostly going to be looking at Eastern European. So you follow along, make sure the rhetoric that is being produced on here matches what I'm saying and that it's getting in there. And then also you're going to take notes. You can actually take notes on that sheet, but you're also going to have notes on this sheet as well, right? And so that's what you're writing. So if you need to pause this, you can to make sure your notes stay up. And then either have your MedBook out or the guided reading notes, because the MedBook oftentimes will provide too much information that we don't really need to focus on. But if you have your notes done already for that, you can then simply highlight things like, oh yeah, I should probably know that because it's showing up in like 3 different places. So I'm officially calling this the Kerr method of watching podcasts. You know, it's not enough to just be a passive viewer. If you really want to be a student and be ready for that AP exam, you got to have all this. Back in my day in college, I didn't do this in high school, but in college, when I wanted to be good and improve myself, I'd be at the library with 3 different books open, a notebook open. I had a Walkman back then. Didn't have a phone. And we didn't have the internet. So I had to crazy. All right, let's get rid of me. If I can figure out how. Oh, there I am. I like doing this though. All right, enough. All right, enough. Okay, so go back a little bit. Why is this being so difficult today? Well, that was 3 minutes of your life. You'll never get back. I am really getting angry right now. It won't go back. All right. Hey, Napoli's. Woohoo! Delicious. All right. So now we switch from most of the time we've been talking about Spain or the HRE. And the Habsburg Stuarts of England. So now let's look at Eastern European society and what happens there within their absolute reign. We got this hip hop rapper to help us learn about it. So this is called the hop rap. And as you can see, I did not invent this. This is way too cheesy for anything I would invent. The hop rap goes, out hops the old so we can rap with the new. So hop actually stands for Holy Roman Empire. So we know in 1648, that's going to go away. The Ottoman Empire, which shortly after the Habsburgs start inching into their territory eastward, they've already been kicked out of Spain. And it's not like they completely disappear. They won't completely disappear until after 1919 for the most part. And then you got Poland/Lithuania, this huge chunk of land in the, I guess, northeast Europe, sandwiched between the Holy Roman Empire and Russia. Those 3 go away. And what takes them is the rap. Russia becomes a nation state. Austria becomes a nation state, and we come to be an empire still ran by the Habsburgs. And then this area known as Brandenburg will start expanding into Prussia. So out hops the yo, so we can rap with the new. I should have a sound effect ready for that, ready to go. Hot rep goes. Outhouse the rep, so rep with the new. That's just ridiculous. All right, so primarily you see two big differences between the East and the West. Let's start with the West because that's what we should know a little bit more about. You have, because of really, go back to the 100 Years' War and the bubonic plague, wiping out a lot of the nobility that was either fighting that war, and then the plague indiscriminately wiped out people. But you had the old school noble getting rid of. So you had that new middle class emerging, that new nobility, nobles of the robe, gentry class. So the power started to be more concentrated in their hands, and the monarchs recognized that. Louis XIV invited his high nobles to Versailles, and he gave these middle class people more control over their areas. Going all the way back to Henry VII and the Star Chamber, we see that. We see the gentry class and the Puritan class of England taking over that whole country. Right? So you see that taking place as well. Feudalism is abolished for the most part as they start moving more towards the market economies and the putting out system, that pre-industrial model. And there's still mercantilism happening, the idea of exploring the world for new resources, and that's changing everything. And even within mercantilism, you have then the joint stock companies doing it from a private, it's a completely different. Eastern absolutism, I guess we're just talking about the monarchs, so yeah, they were mercantile. But Eastern absolutism, you never have the plague that really gets into the eastern half of that area. A lot of that has to do with trade routes that just never went there, namely Poland, in that area. So you never have that. You never have the 100 Years' War, so you never have a reemergence of a middle class. There virtually is no middle class. It's very much a feudal structure. And so in order for the Eastern monarchs wanting to maintain power, they don't appeal to the middle class, they appeal to the nobility. And the way they do that is say, hey, recognize I'm centralizing authority. We sort of have to do this if we're going to compete with the Western monarchs. But in return, quid pro quo, you will maintain your serfs. And on your manors, you will do anything you want, and you won't pay taxes. We'll find tax revenues from other places. So you have a complete switcheroo of all of that. And that will manifest itself in the development of European history. So, and you got a thing called the robots too, which, robots, I am a robot type idea, is actually based on people whose job was to do exactly what they were told, this idea. So it's funny how we think of the word robot now, when in essence it was about people being the actual robots at one point. Very interesting. I was trying to find something. Uh-oh. All right, moving on. All right, so again, we're looking at key concept 2.1, different models of political sovereignty, different ways of ruling, affected the relationship among states. So we're just looking at much of Europe, monarchies established. That's 2.1I. And we're going to jump to letter C, the 18th century, Frederick the Great of Prussia. So he's known as the first servant of the state, the idea that he was actually there to help the state, not for his own glory, so to speak. And what he's considered is one of these first enlightened monarchs. I don't know why College Board decides to cover Enlightenment figures before they tell us to cover the Enlightenment. It's weird, but it's an idea that rationality and philosophy and humanism really should be, or an extension of humanism, should be the ideals that leaders should be about. Not divine right theory, not look at me, not look at that, not look how big my wars are, blah, 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 blah. So how did he project this in the 18th century? We're just talking about the 15th century, and here we are in the 18th century, 1740 to 1786. So, the idea of merit should matter. It doesn't matter who your daddies are, your mommies are, especially when it comes to leadership and ruling. You can work up through the ladder, Now, not as a serf, but through a meritocracy to do that. Also, religious toleration of different individuals. Everyone brings something to the table. By persecuting them, you could be getting rid of your best and brightest, as was happening in France. And then start looking at legal reforms, economic reforms, torture off the books, because it really doesn't do anything. Enough torture is going to convince people of anything with that. What else? You can see some other things there. So, and check the med book out. There's some other details. You already read that though. So Frederick II is Frederick the Great. Freddie G. He's got lots of names I gave him. If you remember from your notes, Freddie G. I got him P to the G, rated PG. Oh wait, that's Peter. My bad. Man, I'm all over the map. Where's Frederick? Oh, I didn't get all crazy with Frederick. He's just great. Although, have you ever seen the movie The Patriot? The bad guy, the British soldier in that, which is weird because it's the same exact time period. The actor that portrays him, to me anyway, looks just like him. There, I mean, that crazy. So we do introduce a new family name into our family feud. Welcome to the Hohenzollern. All right, so this is the new German-Prussian domination. We got a map coming up where I can show you secondary. So if we put it all together, the main families, you got your Medici in the Italian city-states. You've got, if we jump all the way to England, the primary one we focus on are the Tudors and then the Stuarts. And then coming soon, the Hanovers. And then French, mostly our story begins and ends with the Bourbons for the most part. And then, of course, our Habsburgs all over the place. Now we add the Hohenzollern, and lastly, we'll add the Romanovs to that. So you got these family dynasties still running the show. Oh, there he is again. Come on, that's perfect. Perfect. That is the Prussian flag. Those of you who are in my class, you recognize the flag of the German First Reich before World War I. You can see that symbol as the centerpiece laid across the black cross in there. So at some point, but not till 1871, you'll see the emergence of Germany. So there is no Germany, but the closest thing to it is going to be the failed Holy Roman Empire. And now one of those principalities, Prussia, is becoming larger and larger. The other one, Austria, ran by the Habsburgs. And then you still, to the west, have not a million, but I'm being hyperbolic, all these different principalities that eventually are going to be centralized into one German Reich Empire state, which will there also be a third Reich, and that's the Nazis. All right, yeah, here's a good map. So you can see Brandenburg, Prussia in the orange right here. So that north central kind of idea. Province of Prussia is in the red all over the place. So it's a little feudalist type game. Territory acquired from Poland. We'll talk about that a little bit. You can still see the Holy Roman Empire exists, but it's still that loose confederation. There's nothing really binding it together anymore ever since 1648. Really, you can make the argument since 1555. All right, so let's rep with the Haps. Habsburgs are still out there. Joseph II doing his thing. Son of Maria Theresa, which I thought I originally had in the notes, but where'd she go? I don't know why I put Joseph II before her. That would seem silly of me. See, I'm flipping through my stuff. Now I'm confused on my own notes. I don't know. We'll stretch it all out. Oh, that might be a different, I don't know. There's so many things in this class to be ready for. So where does Joseph II show up? He's looking at C. So just another illustrative example. So we don't need to go too much into detail here. But again, centralizes authority, extends his empire. Poland we'll talk about coming up. Again, religious toleration. We're seeing this as trends. This is that trend in European history, getting rid of serfs, embracing the middle class, increasing trade and transportation, all of those things. I thought this played itself. Oh, no, so you can see the Austrian Habsburgs, what they're up to. 1610, that's the territory they control. I mean, there still is some turf in Spain, Italy out there. But look at the difference from 1610. The shift is into the Ottoman Empire and the Polish areas. That's 1795. It's a huge shift there in the Austrian Empire. And all these people here, and as they work down here, you're going to have different ethnic groups that will become under Habsburg control again. Those groups fight for freedom, will eventually trigger World War I in 1914. It gets nutty. There's the robots. They are coming for you. Right? We talked about the idea. It's crazy. Robots. Kind of like serfs. Same idea. Well, his idea was to get rid of the robots and create sort of a middle class of sorts, industrialized to sorts. And then instead of having them serve the landlords, tax them. Go that way. So it's almost this like, hey, I'll give you freedom. Cool. Yay. You'll see that too. You're like, I don't want to do school. Yeah. And they're going to have a job. And guess what? It's going to be the same, except but I'll get paid. No, you won't. It's going to be taxed. I just realized this guy's looking at me. Stop looking at me. I just found this, thought it was funny. Social class in the 25th century. Elite off-planet technocrats. They don't even live here. Emerging alien aristocracy. Our robots will take over us. Affluent waste scavengers. And there's us. Established corporate serfs. Some could argue, although this is 25th century, I don't know. All right, let's look at the Russians. So we're looking namely at 1A, Peter the Great of Russia, going through there. So you can see the partitions of Poland is really what's working out here. So it has to do with 2.1 ID, the inability of the Polish monarchy to consolidate authority of an ability to. So Poland's got problems, folks. Its nobles never get under control of the monarchy, in part because its neighboring new nation states were constantly making deals with them to overthrow their monarch. The reason they're able to do that is Poland has no real natural borders. So there's no like mountains or rivers that divide it easily. So we call it the blinking light of history. Sometimes it's there as a nation, sometimes it's not. And it's completely agrarian for the most part. So it's hard to industrialize ever or move in the direction of trade when it only has that in its natural resource. And it has no way to get into the Atlantic to trade. So it's just Poland. Yeah. And you can see it gets hacked up first in 1772. Then in 1793, and then in 1794, 5, and then you see our Austria, Prussia, Russia basically control all of it. So that's why it's difficult. Like, I'm Polish, but am I more German because Prussian took it over? And there's this kid named Bartek. He looks like a Russian Viking. Is he really Polish or is he more like Russian? Yeah, these names we subscribe to things, goofy. But hey, check this one out. Partition of Poland in 3 minutes. Cover your letter D. Then history of Poland. Fun story. Especially so much Polish influence in these parts of Chicago. As I just mentioned, my family. These people are awesome. The Wing Hussars. All right. So now we get into the Russian. The Kiev Rus. So this is a group. The Rus means those who row. So the Kiev is the rowers from Kiev. So we know that the Russians were actually Vikings that settled the land. So you get this big bearded kind of idea. And they have a crazy lineage, the big bearded types all the way to some like modern European. That's the last to sit on the throne. You got the whole enlightened monarchs. You got the series of flags that look European, and they go to this, and they go to this, and they're back to this. Huge history. It's like its own. We could literally easily have a whole class on Russian history. That would not be a problem at all. But do a little background. So before 1453, you have the Mongol invasion of that area. And these were the fierce horseback that came off of the steppes of Asia, these long hillside, never settled for long, raped and pillaged, and then left. You could watch the crash course on it if you'd like. It's John Green's favorite because he always alludes to them. But this is one of we get focused on European society, but the Golden Horde dominated one of the biggest, if not the biggest empire and longest lasting empires of the world history, and they will get up to Kiev way, let's see if we can find the years. Not really. This is an old map. But anyway, just to give you that background of Russian culture. So Russian is really more of an Asian culture, but especially when we talk about Peter the Great, he tries to westernize it. He wants to move it forward into what he perceives progress. All right, so Kiev eventually takes the name of Moscow, and the leader becomes the Tsar. And the Tsar is just a Russian version of the word Caesar, which is like a German version of Kaiser, which we'll talk about next semester. And the hierarchy is Tsar, and then nobility is the boyars. One of the most ruthless rulers of all time was Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible. You can see 1533 to 1584. So we kind of start him as the monarch there. Just to give you an example, he built this. He didn't build it. He directed it. St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. But it really gives you that, that it's a cathedral, so it's churchy. It's the Eastern Orthodox Church. But you also get some of like the Asiatic sort of cultural reference there too. It's a very interesting kind of place. So all the architects and people who built this, after they were done, the terrible Ivan had them all blinded so that they can never build anything like this ever again. He was terrible. We'll probably read this later. It's a really kind of a fun read. Well, it's horrible. His childhood was something else. But what is born out of the way he ruled, and we go all the way to Putin right now. He might be listening. He might be listening. And the lying, the brutality, the everything we kind of make synonymous with Russian politics is, old school, to say the least. Wrong. No, I'm right. Whatever. Hey, they even have a beer after him. Ivan the Terrible Imperial Stout. Heavy stuff. Another thing just to plug in there, there's this group throughout Russian history that's going to be east of Moscow and St. Petersburg, sort of modern-day Kazakhstan, and called the Kazakhs. You're going to constantly see this group rebelling. And you kind of have in Russia, especially as we talk about more modern Russia, is the nobility living in the cities doing one thing, and then like 90% of incredibly impoverished peasants doing everything else. And that's going to be true through the Russian Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. So that, just a story to focus on. You got Stanka Razin, the Kazakh. So, but what it does show you is that, right when Louis XIV's ruling, you got these insurrections. Those are opportunities to consolidate power. And that will usher in the Romanov dynasty, as you can see through here. Starting with Michael Romanov in 1613, to Peter Romanov, to Catherine the Great, all the way down the line to Nicholas, rather. Alexander should be one of these. It's another family that names each other the same thing all over and over again. So Peter the Great is a great because he's considered the great Western. One, the dude was 6'7", hated beards. He went on a little hiatus for a while to travel around Europe, dressed as a commoner, took some peeps with him, learned how to do shipbuilding, learned philosophy, learned about everything that he saw happening in European society. And so he wants Russia to follow suit. And so he begins to westernize. The Mebuk does a great job looking at these examples, and some of them are general, some of them are specific. One thing, though, is with the boyars. He said, you're not going to dress like a bunch of goons who think it's 1500s. You're going to start dressing like the Western dress. So you're going to be clean cut. We're going to start developing schools, and you're going to start sending your kids there so they can learn technical things that are going to help expand our industry. We're going to be ready For wars, we're going to start taxing people. A thing called the soul tax. We're going to monopolize certain products and sell them to Europeans and make them so bright that, so we're going to dominate that way. We're going to set up, similar to an intendant system and everywhere else, an enlightened form of bureaucracy that responds to him, not to the nobility. He deals with, they don't have the Catholic Church, but they have the Russian Orthodox Church or the Eastern Orthodox Church. He's going to try to create, similar to what French did, is put that all under his control. So you're seeing similar tactics of consolidating power throughout. All right. So again, this is kind of bring it all back home, is comparative geographies and history of Eastern and Western Europe. Look at Western Europe. They can explore and trade. They can't. So that's what it is. You got rise of towns, middle class. They can't. Allies and money for kings who can forward. So they get middle class bureaucracies and standing armies. They can't. So they have to rely on their nobility. They control the nobles. They have to work with them. They're next to each other. So that's interesting. So there is Eastern Europe try to copy the Western by using some things. So they still got to work within their nobility. So they tend to make some crazy professional disciplined armies. And you're going to see that with World War I, trained bureaucracy. It's just like a much more top-down approach, where in Western Europe, it'll be more, I want to say grassroots, but middle class within that. I mean, this just summarizes everything we talked about. I don't want to get too nuts with it. And as the man I hate more than anyone else on the planet would say, peace out. We're done with this chapter. I wish Tom Brady would say peace out and retire, so my Buffalo Bills have a chance at winning at some point in my life. Oh, what are you going to do? Is that it? That's literally it. That's literally it, people. All right, let's turn this bad boy out. Wait, let me check. You can turn it off if you want. I'm checking for a sound effect that sees that if I have one that says peace out anywhere.
Yes, sir.
Nope, not what I was looking for. That just got me, dude. No, nothing. I got nothing. All right, bye. How do you turn this thing off? Nope, that's it. Sick of Tom Brady yet? I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him. What the heck? There we go.